Good evening, everyone. I'm Dan Lothian, and welcome to The State of Race, a program in partnership with the Boston Globe, the NAACP Boston Chapter, the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, and GBH's World Channel. We all know how essential joy is in our lives. Joy from a job promotion, or the birth of a new family member, or just the thoughtfulness of someone paying it forward with a cup of coffee. We know how lovely that can be, and it makes us happier. But what about people of color? People who often feel unseen or oppressed. As Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley has said, we especially need Black joy. We need Black joy not just in the moment, but in perpetuity. Tonight, we'll hear from Jeneé Osterheldt, Boston Globe's culture reporter, and the creator of A Beautiful Resistance. Porsha Olayiwola, Boston's poet laureate, musical guest Oompa, and many others. That's great, you can go ahead and applaud. And many others about what Black joy means to them. And we'll also celebrate the stories that unite us with each other and the greater community we live in. But first, GBH reporter James Bennett II gets us started with two prominent Black leaders.
My name is Carolyn Crockett. I am an assistant professor of urban history, public policy, and planning at MIT.
My name is Gavin Smith. I am the head of school at Boston Latin Academy and Boston Public Schools.
For me, Black joy is all about recovering our possibilities and our ability to name and to define our lives.
I think about being at the barber shop and just all of the conversations that come from that, or the deep-rooted community that exists in the Black church and Black spaces. So for me, Black joy is just the spaces that are created to celebrate and honor Black people and their identities. But I found a lot of joy in the students, the diverse range of students from different countries, different places of origin. I realized that life was more than a doctor or a lawyer, right? It was about the different opportunities that you can help folks actualize and the things that you can help them become.
I mean, I think of joy as something that is anchoring, that is ongoing, that is expansive. And it has a sense of, again, like I said before, the sense of possibility. And so if you think about what it would mean to not have a sense of possibility in your daily life, in your daily walk, it would feel quite bleak.
I think about, often we talk about the head nod, right? And I've been able to, over the course of time, recognize that's like, I see you, right? Like I see you, I know who you are.
Understanding that you absolutely have a right to exist everywhere that you are.
We rally around each other and we're supportive of each other, and we understand the nuances of things that happen in this country and how they impact us. So those conversations are important for us to have with each other, but they're also really important for us to have with others.
And to resist this idea that it's up to someone else, or someone else has the right to name us, to define us, to say what our existence is.
Kicking off our conversation this evening is the Boston Globe's Jeneé Osterheldt and Porsha Olayiwola, Poet Laureate of Boston. Jeneé, who covers culture and social justice for the Globe, is the creator of A Beautiful Resistance, a multi-platform celebration of Black joy. But let's get started first with Porsha, who will get us centered and bring us the joy with this poem. Go ahead.
Writer and scholar Christina Sharp wrote a book called In the Wake, in which she theorizes that Black folks are still living in the wake of the slave ship, in the aftermath of slavery. And she calls In the Wake, she gives it three different names, three different definitions. The first is in the wake, right, in the shape that a slave ship makes or ship makes when it's moving through water is this V shape, right? She calls it in the wake in the sense of the celebration after a death, right? The wake of a funeral And she calls it in the wake in a sense of being woke, right? Which is to say that we know all of these things that are constantly and perpetually happening to the Black body. And even being woke, we still choose joy, right? This first poem is about that. It is in the shape of the wake, in the shape of a V. And so I'll read it 3 different ways. The first side, the second side, and then across. And it's called In the Wake. When a ship sets sail across a body of water, turbulence occurs beneath the glutted belly. Even the ocean bursts waves in places unfamiliar. The bow pierces forward. A trail restructures the gods of the Atlantic, once a vast portal, now an atlas unmade, a wake where it hadn't been. Objects in motion never mourn what was killed in order to be born. Instead, crossing continues with the wreckage of sea, sainted ocean. Keep in memory the self who breathed, formed gills of Atlanteans, a sopping procession silting the silk of water, yet tide still running over what tried to sever a saline reflection. 2, which is the right side. A slave ship hauls bodies as cargo, and both the surface and ocean floor rifts. Even the clouds break open in sobs. Trauma welts, swells the earth. The past is not past, but vessel. People emerge from the bow, but never the ship, now a grave cast unto the back, awake where we have been. We never mourn ourselves. Instead, we feast. Instead, we ritualize the evasion of death and the death itself. How holy. Us who have not drowned when they drowned us. With the resurrection of bones along our mouths, us grinning still. What tried to grind us into sand failed and cannot keep us from surging. 3rd, across in the wake. When a ship sets sail, a slave ship hauls across a body of water, bodies as cargo, and turbulence occurs beneath both the surface and ocean floor. The glutted belly rifts. Even the clouds break. Even the ocean bursts waves open and sobs. Trauma in places unfamiliar welts. Swells the earth. The bow pierces forward. The past is not past, but vessel. A trail restructures the gods. People emerge from the bow of the Atlantic, but never the ship. Once a vast portal, now a grave. Now an atlas unmade, cast unto the back, awake where it hadn't been, awake where we have been. We, objects in motion, never mourn ourselves, never mourn what was killed. Instead, we feast. Instead, crossing continues with the evasion of death, the wreckage of sea, and the death itself. How holy, sainted ocean, keep in memory us who have not drowned the self, who breathe when they drowned us, formed gills of Atlanteans with the resurrection of bones, a sopping procession along our mouths, silting the silk of water, yet us grinning still, tide still running over what tried to grind, what tried to sever us into sand, failed, and a saline reflection cannot keep us from surging.
Porsha, wow. Sainted ocean, what tried to sever us into sand has failed. This is what we mean when we call joy Black. Tell me a little bit about what Black joy is and why we specify it that way.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Same.
Yeah, I was thinking about that in the choice of poem, and thinking about why specifically Black joy is, specified to be Black, right? And I think it is, as Christina Sharp says, in the face of knowing all of these things that we know about what it means to move through the world in a Black body, to still knowingly, in the face of death, choose joy, So that's what I'm thinking about. It's a form of resistance.
A beautiful resistance indeed. I've been thinking a lot about the arts and the role it plays in our practices of freedom. How is poetry and music and dance a form of freedom?
Yeah, thank you. How is music and joy and poetry a form of freedom? Well, I think about it from the idea, specifically art, that it comes from absolutely nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, it is a thing that didn't exist, and then somehow some spirit gave it to me, and I wrote it down, and now it's a thing for for me to enjoy it, but for other folks as well. And so for me, it's close to godliness, and I think I don't know that there is an entity more free than God herself, right? So that's what I think about those things, those forms of expression, is that they literally come from within us, right? And so there must be some magic in them.
Absolutely. When I think about the revolution, I think about us first. When I see Black people, I see a movement. I think when you are watering your garden, it starts with you. Mm. How do you water yourself? How are you tending to your personal revolution?
That is a great question. How am I watering myself? I think that is, I rest. I'm really into rest. I think there's this movement of the soft life, and I'm trying to lean into that. You know what I mean? There is, we live under this capitalist world where we have to grind and we have to produce so much work. But some days I'm just electing to rest, to just sit down, right? I enjoy traveling. I enjoy eating quite a bit, So I don't know, just regular things that bring me joy are the ways in which I'm practicing that.
I am here for Soft Girl Summer. What? Listen, if Beyonce and Drake want to draw attention to our already very Black house music history by giving us a soft summer sound, let's go.
Especially at the end of Pride Month,
Pride Month, Juneteenth, here comes all,
it's about that time.
How are you celebrating Juneteenth and Pride?
Thank you. I'm just existing, I'm both Black and gay, and so I celebrate it every day and all the time. I think one way in which I celebrate it is I come home, I'm home, which is to say I usually travel for my birthday because that's, I'm celebrating my joy in my life. And so I like to spend some time away, but no matter what, it's so close, my birthday is close to Juneteenth, I'm always coming home. I want to be here and celebrating in my own house, my own body, all of those things. So I don't know. I'm celebrating by just existing unapologetically, walking through the streets and being as absolutely fabulous as I can. And, reminding folks, it is June, and I'm Black and I'm gay. And then if you got free stuff or whatever you got, I am VIP this month. No, I'm kidding. I was just talking about the capitalist society, but
June is Juning, so let's just be in June.
Right.
I'm sorry, that was great. Now I have the giggles.
That's great. That's that joy.
That's that joy. This is what happens when you bring Black folks together and let them be in their joy. As a journalist, it's so important to me that we document, that we tell the truth and the richness and the fullness of our story, and that we speak truth to power and dispel the lies that have been told about us. And at the Boston Globe, we're celebrating 150 years, for better or for worse, as we evolve into our better selves and our better practice. Mm-hmm. And as a poet, I fancy you as a most important storyteller, a most important keeper of our past, present, and future. Why do you think oral tradition and storytelling is so essential to who we are, past, present, and future?
Yeah. I guess I think about it in the context of Afrofuturism, and more specifically, I'm thinking about counter narratives, right? Like marginalized folks have been kept from telling the truth, right? From writing down our narratives historically and also yesterday, right? And so I think that is what I'm leaning into. And that's also what I love about journalism, right? It's like when I think about writing, right, and the bravery that it might take, I think about one of my sheroes, Ida B. Wells Barnett, right? Who she has this really incredible quote, right, which is this. I'm totally gonna mispronounce it, I'm not gonna quote it properly, but she has this idea when she's talking about how she's writing and who she's writing for, saying that she's always writing for Black folks, right? And if those folks can't understand and can't be with me, then I'm doing something wrong. And I saw that's something that I'm thinking about at the intersection of activism and poetry and documenting our narratives, right? Is making sure, one, it's written down, the whole truth is told, and that my people are with me along the ride, right?
I carry us with me everywhere I go. That's kind of my moral compass. I think a lot about Toni Morrison and Zora Neale Hurston. Zora said, if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. And I try really hard to kind of ground myself in that mission and that legacy work. I'm so happy you brought up Ida B. Wells. Like,
That's my girl.
It's my hero too. You, as you said, you exist. And for so many of us who follow you, who witness you, who are in your presence, we are inspired and moved by you. And I just want to fill your cup a little and just tell you like how much joy you bring into every room and all of those people that you carry with you. I ask people a lot about the history they carry with them. What is the history that you carry with you?
Whoa, I was just reflect. I didn't anticipate that be a question. What is the history that I'm carrying with me? You know, I am thinking about my grandmothers, my grandfather, my family members who are not here. I think about how I keep them alive daily, right? And then also, I'm like constantly thinking about Black history, right? If you couldn't tell, right? And I'm constantly thinking about that narrative and what it means. One day, I think I was just walking around, maybe even out here, and I was just like looked around and I thought to myself, my God, I am a descendant of slaves, right? Like, I know I'm walking around, like if this was like some kind of weird fiction novel, which America might very well be, right? Then I would be the superhero. I would be like the Shira, you know. And so I don't know. I'm carrying that legacy constantly, like the legacy of just my family. I think the overall history of Black folks and what it means to be Black in this country, and specifically in this country, and then also like just little Black girls and little Black boys up the street, right? Like those are the things I'm constantly thinking about.
Before we close out and you do your beautiful poem that you've done for the 150th anniversary of the Boston Globe, we are so lucky to have you even have almost manifested words for us. What makes your life a beautiful resistance?
What makes my life a beautiful resistance? I don't know. I think the fact that I just smile and I look good, no. But
you do.
But in the face of everything that tried to kill me and that constantly said that, you know, I didn't meet a particular beauty standard, or that I wouldn't be smart enough, or that my work is not literary enough, right? So I think exercising who I need to be and who I want to be in the face of all that is the resistance, right? So. Now everybody's gonna think I'm conceited. I'm not, guys.
No, a Black person who carries their head high and delights in themselves is radical and much needed. There's nothing conceited about that.
Okay, Cory.
I would love to have you close us out with your beautiful poem for the Boston Globe.
This is a portrait of the Boston Globe as Atlas, and it is for the Globe on their sesquicentennial. Some men like to keep the world in the pit of their palm. A boy beside the psalms of the pulpit, alms within the reach of the tips of their fingers. Some like to think the body exists as a check mark, the people as a checkmate, the city as a check, the politics of living endows in illness some cannot afford to survive. Plasters, a hissing eye, and a woman's fist to the window of a school bus means a family can reside in a home owned by a lord. Like land and money, truth is also a god. The world is celestial, depending on whose shoulders we sit truth. The circulation of newspapers increase during times of war. Peril people need knowing to unfold like a map, need clarity as clear as a marked path toward truth. Plato's allegory urges light to be cast unto our shadows. The truth, then, is a catalyst, cartography for morphing movement forward. Truth. A writer can rewrite a blushing wound into a blooming bouquet, convert a disaster into a display of generosity. Truth. A photographer can humble hunger, capture humility in homelessness. A child's dingy birthday banner can become decorum designed for the opening page. Some experience the world through a filter of compassion, a lens of latitude. Between us is only the long length of wind. Distance can be closed with an unexpected laugh, a funny review, a new understanding. The world, like us, is a heavenly body, depending on whose shoulders our weight. Some like to keep the cosmos in the pit of their palms, while others like to keep the earth held in light. Beacon bound to carry, Celtic city, cradle of liberty, globe of giving, this spear of life, this beautiful resistance, this service unto community, this evolution of revolution, duty to excavate, to reshape, to hold like Atlas, to say like a compass, onward.
Onward.
Wow. We could have paused on Porsha for many hours, but we must move on. Thank you, Porsha. When you're the first Black doctor ever to head up Boston's Health Commission, you feel both pride and responsibility. I talked with Executive Director Dr. Bisola Ojikutu, and here's what she had to say about Black joy.
You know, when I heard about you all doing this interview, I said, okay, so what is it that Black joy really means? And I guess as I sat and thought about it, I think it's resilience, for me at least. It means realizing our complicated history, you know, all the things that have happened, the pervasive racism, the systemic inequity, all the stress, the trauma, and yet still having the strength to go on, you know, and still having the ability to have happy moments and to be hopeful and to still be creative and innovative. I feel joy when I see my community, people who I know, really be proud of themselves, you know, and support each other and feel good about who we are. And that's not all the time, you know. I don't want to underestimate that, you know. I think we've gone through a lot, and you know, the perceptions of who we are can be quite negative. But when we feel good about who we are, when we celebrate each other, when we celebrate who we are, I think that's, to me, that's Black joy.
We'll hear more from Dr. Ojikutu in a little while. You know, she mentioned creativity in connection with Black joy. And with me now are two people who use their creative juices and entrepreneurial spirit to do something cool and surprising to help others experience joy. Danny Garcia Dicato founded Brothers on Bikes, and Wendell Delk started a comedy show called Tickle Me Tuesdays. I can't wait to find out where that name came from. That's in Mattapan. Both creations sound joyful, and I want to start with you, Danny. First of all, I consider myself a brother on a bike. I was out this weekend riding along, but certainly not part of the group. I was by myself. Before we get into what kind of was at the birth of this group, what is it? What are Brothers on Bikes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it was co-founded 2 years ago. Myself and a good friend of mine, Elijah Evans, who works at a bike shop, got together and started riding around the time George Floyd's death occurred. And I remember at that time kind of feeling a sense of emptiness and just wanted to connect with more people of color. Around the same time, I was also wanting to ride a bike again. And I always knew how to do that as a kid. And then, it kind of fell down the wayside. And so I wanted to...
Serious biker or just riding around the neighborhood kind of biking?
As a kid, riding around the neighborhood, and now definitely a little bit more of a serious biker for sure with the group. But ultimately, the name of the group is called Brothers on Bikes, and essentially it's a space and a community for folks of color and allies to essentially represent Black joy, of course, and also to have fun on a bike.
You talked about what was going on at the time with Floyd and the protests and all of the anger and the ugliness that was out there. Why bikes, though? Why did you see that as the perfect vehicle to unite and to, I guess, create a community that could be supportive?
I had a question for myself. Like, as I was riding a bike solo, I was wondering if there were other folks in Boston that did the same thing as me. And I felt like when I looked, I didn't really see a space. And so, with Elijah, I thought that we could create that space.
Wendell, you're not putting people on bikes or gathering around bike rides, but you're making people laugh. Were you always a comedian? Was this always something that you aspired to do?
First, I'd like to say that thank you for having me. Tickle Me Tuesday was born through the pandemic. A lot of people were starting to lose their lives, and not that I'm a comic per se. I do have jokes, but I'm not a full-fledged comic. I hire comics from all across the country, and I have them come into an urban area, which is Mattapan, which is called Tickle Me Tuesdays. The name came up because it was Tuesday, and we say Tickle Me Tuesdays. We tickle you without using our hands. We tickle you through jokes and laughter. So during the sense of the problem of the pandemic, or as it was starting to turn, that it was saying it was decreasing, I felt that a lot of people had cabin fever. And it had to be some type of platform to get people to actually re-experience life after going through so much grimness. So when I thought of Tickle Me Tuesdays and doing something to the event of comedy.
Comedy clubs can be such a great escape, right? I love to be able to go there and the lights dim and you never know what you're going to get up on that stage or whether you're going to get singled out because of a shirt that you're wearing or something. But when you think about the lineup and the people who you want to have on stage, do you look at something more than just this person can tell a joke, or this person can tell a joke and there's a lot of meaning, or they can take things that are in the headlines, they can take current events and make us smile?
So that's a great question. When I do decide to curate the shows on a week-to-week basis, I just think about all genres and all walks of lives. So I want the comedians to be able to touch any and everyone, not just the urban area of Mattapan, but I want everyone from all walks of life to be able to come into Mattapan, sit down through the dim lights, and enjoy a good comedy show in the midst of what we're going through today in the world.
You said you're curating, and you're funny, but not a stand-up comedian in that kind of way.
Right.
But have you been tempted to go up there and offer your own series of funnies?
If I had the time to sit down and write down everything that I go through, because I make light of life. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people are too serious with life. Not saying that life is not serious, but you got to add some joy and laughter into life in order to make it through the next day. If you don't offer yourself live, love, and laugh, then you're only defeating your own self with what's going on there in the world tomorrow.
Right. Danny, in biking and getting out and cycling around, it all, especially when it comes to the really nice bikes, where people have on those outfits.
Yeah.
It looks like they're in the Olympics or one of those kinds of things. But that's often seen as, wow, that's for those guys to do. That's for wealthy people. That's for people in the suburbs. It's not very approachable for people of color. How do you take something that seemingly is so far away and bring it so close to the community?
Yeah, it was absolutely a need, and I think we wanted to kind of create that imagery of folks, people of color on bikes, on not so expensive bikes, but also still enjoying that space and that hobby of riding a bike.
And do you have a route that's planned out, and what's the typical length of these rides?
Absolutely. We definitely plan our routes, and sometimes it's around this area here in the city, and sometimes it can go out further to Dover. It can go out to Deer Island, Winthrop, and so it's not just slated to Boston. And we have gone on rides probably exceeding 50 miles.
How do you deal with those who have some trouble keeping up?
We communicate. We think it's super important, I think, ahead of time to let folks know, to get an idea of what pace we're riding at and how far we're going. And then the folks that are comfortable will join us.
Wendell, you always know how you're doing in terms of a club or anything you're doing in life when you hear from the consumers of your product, right? And so what do people tell you a club like yours does for them, whether it's sort of a personal perspective or just how they then perhaps view life when they walk out the doors of your club?
Therapy. Laughter can be a sense of therapy in the midst of a long, hard work day, in the midst of a long single-parent day, in the midst of even some cases of, trying to fight for your sobriety. So if you can come out and get a few laughs, and that could take you away from all those elements in life, then I've succeeded as what I'm trying to do as far as Tickle Me Tuesdays.
What is your dream? I mean, not that I want to push you beyond what you're currently doing, but oftentimes you have a great idea and it works, but you have dreams and aspirations to move it even beyond perhaps where you are now. Do you view this as something that perhaps could happen in another community, or what are your dreams and goals for Tickle Me
That's a
Tuesdays?
great question. I just met with the executive management at Lyric Stage right around the corner from here, and we're planning on doing a big show in September on, I believe, September 21st, which is the 1-year anniversary of the birth of Tickle Me Tuesdays.
So that's breaking news.
So that's breaking
Here
news.
first.
Right.
And
You heard it here first.
Thank you. And Danny, that's good.
Thank you.
Danny, what's next? Where's the group going next? And do you ever collaborate with other like-minded groups for bike rides?
Yeah, absolutely. We just had that conversation the other day about, how large we're getting and what are our hopes for the future. And to be honest, I think we're still trying to figure that out. But I'm happy to create and have a space for folks that are not even from Boston, that may be coming to Boston from different areas, but also enjoy biking and can find a community with us. And we absolutely collaborate with folks here in this area for sure. Big shout outs to Yari from Women on Wheels, which is a space for women who bike, as well as Bikes Not Bombs as well.
Great. Danny, Wendell, thanks a lot. And
You're very
keep
welcome.
bringing on the joy.
Thanks.
On bikes and in comedy clubs.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you.
Well, now, so for something that we've all been waiting for, performance by Oompa. She's a nationally acclaimed Boston-born poet, rapper, and educator. Her latest album, Untethered, was released to popular and critical acclaim last year, and she recently performed at Boston Calling. Jeneé, the honors to you.
I am so honored to introduce the incomparable, beautiful, bold, radiant, and unbothered MC, Oompa. Oompa is what I mean when I say Black girl magic. Oompa's album, Unbothered, is the epitome of expressing Black joy, and Oompa isn't just one of Boston's best Black artists. Oompa is one of Boston's best artist, period, on everything. Give it up for Oompa. Let's get to this joy.
This is how it works, right? Behind the scenes. You've been here before, right? And we did the sound check. Everything was perfect, but yeah, the mice got under there and started, chipping away at the cable. That's right. That's comedy for your club. Remember that. Yeah.
You don't want me doing comedy.
Okay, here goes your backup mic. Here, I'll take that one.
Check, check. Oh, beautiful. All right. Yes. You know what? It's all freestyle today. We're gonna figure it out. So my name is Oompa. I'm from Roxbury. Thank you so much for having me. I wanted to start with a prayer. I grew up in Black church. I don't necessarily be there now, except inside of my body, but I like to start with a little prayer. So this song is called Amen. Let's get to it. Check, check. Yeah. Yo, I want a piece, I want a thing, I want the keys, I want the lane, yo. If I gotta choose B, let it come with a stay. I want the flow seats, take the nosebleed if I'm riding with my gang. I want my piece, I want my space, I want the cheese, put the cheese on the cake. If the bacon touch down, business all out the red. See the homies well fed, so we gotta say grace, say man. I want my peace and I'ma stay. Bumper day one, man, today is the day. If it call me stress, it ain't for me. I spend time to press, hop a bad energy, but I forgave myself. I ain't mad at me, cause me a bad chick. Me, I give, me, I be good. Me, my pride of me. Not take no shows that the thighs thick as thieves. Hot comb, hot sweat it out on a Sunday. Burn sage and bad bridges on a Monday. I put it up in blood and sweat and tears, and I'll be damned if I don't meet it on the runway. I'm going back to the day that we used to play. It wasn't really much complicated. They out here stealing our childhood, man. Get yours back. That's the only way homies finna make it. I want a piece. I want the thing. I want the keys. I want the lane. If I gotta choose B, let it come with a stay. I want the flow seats, take the nosebleed if I'm riding with my gang. I want my peace. I want my space. I want the cheese. Put the cheese on the cake. If the bacon touch down, all out the red. I'ma write my homie Benji's verse. He's from Pittsburgh, so he couldn't make it today. He was like, I carry the scrolls, I'm cracking the code. You know how I go when you chasing a dream. I dream of the shows, dream of my role. Done with the, yeah, maybe we'll see. Built for longevity under the sun. It don't matter what happens, I already won and I'm playing for keeps. I'm up and at it, they still in the sheets. We not the same and I'm out of your league. Yes, I believe in me, I need consistency. I'm only trying to be where I need to be, where I can see myself growing and rolling up peacefully high as I look at my life like I'm about to be. All cause I dug myself out of a glory to God. Now I'm pleading the fifth until my work is done. This is embarrassing, you out of character. Oh, now you blaming the moon. How I gon' carry your highs of heavens, but scared to face up with the goons. The truth is forever piercing in my soul. From Pittsburgh to Boston, we all in the road. My homie Oompa really gon' blow, cause we did what we do and you do what you told. Now I want a piece. I want the thing. I want the keys. Now give me the lane. If I gotta choose B, let it come with a stay. I want the flow seats, take the nosebleed if I'm riding with my gang. I want my peace. I want my space. I want the cheese. Put the cheese on the cake. If the bacon touch down, all out the red. See the homies well fed, so we gotta say grace. Let's sing it for them. Amen, amen, amen. Amen, Y'all better sing. Dan, would you talk to us for a little bit? You better play, Dan. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Oompa. You've helped us all experience a little joy with that performance. That was great. We'll have you back again a little bit later in the program, but first we need to shift the focus a little. We can't talk about Black joy without acknowledging the pain and trauma that disproportionately affects communities of color and impacts their mental health. Here's Dr. Ojikutu again.
The trauma that we as a people have experienced from racism has been huge. I mean, racism is trauma. And that then has led to sort of a pervasive sense of stress, depression, and I think that that's something that's been ongoing for a long period of time. And then I think that most recently, of course, you have the intersection of COVID-19 and the isolation that's gone along with that, and the stress and the anxiety and the PTSD that I think a lot of people are still experiencing. So all of that together, I think, has created a significant, issue. And I think that the fact that it's there is one thing, but the fact that we haven't done enough to address it is another. I mean, even if you look pre-COVID-19, like 1 in every 3 Black individuals suffering from mental health illness was not getting care, was not in any sort of care, because we have all these barriers that relate to us getting care. Now, whether that be just not being available, not being culturally diverse, not being linguistically appropriate, the stigma associated with, accessing mental health care, huge within our community.
Our next guest, Susan Wilkinson, is here to talk about mental health in the BIPOC community. She's a board-certified psychiatric and mental health nurse practitioner. And beyond being a trained professional, Susan also has had personal experience taking care of loved ones struggling with mental illness and substance abuse. Thanks so much for joining us. And there's so much to unpack around this issue, but I found that every time we talk about mental health, especially within communities of color, it's just a difficult subject to start, right? Just right at the beginning, it's just so hard to even begin that conversation. Why is it so difficult to even mention mental health, let alone express a personal battle that someone may be having with mental health?
All right. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me here. And thank you for actually creating this platform, for even acknowledging that we have to talk about mental health. I think the reason why we struggle in the Black community when it comes to mental health and mental illness, and again, it's a spectrum. Mental health is on the other spectrum, while mental illness is on the severe spectrum altogether. It does carry its own stigma, as you all know. However, for us as people of color, we already have enough that we carry on our backs in terms of stigma. And also, do we need another stigma on our back? But also viewing mental health and mental illness in more of a characterological lens.
And what do you mean by that?
What do I mean by that? Viewing mental health as if it's someone's character, as opposed to an organic brain disorder. The same way we do view hypertension as an organic cardiovascular condition, when it comes to mental health, we tend to view it as weakness. If you can only pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you'll be just fine. My business is my business. We don't talk about that, So I can see how that can be viewed as another burden on us as people of color.
Right. And is that view coming from outside of families, outside of communities, or is it something that is is learned, taught within homes. Young people are hearing expressions of, we can't talk about this, or suck it up and keep going. Is that something from a young age within households that's the message, and it's hard to break that as children get older?
Right. And I'm so glad you actually pointed that out. It can be both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. The two truths can actually exist in the same space. It can be both in that sometimes we bring up our children in a way that we don't talk about feelings, and we learn to stuff feelings instead of teaching kids how to really express themselves. And I think that's also rooted in the history of the Black community overall. When you look at the history of the African American communities, you found strength in kind of banding together. However, talking about feelings was something that would actually draw people back. So it can be both. You can raise a child without teaching them how to talk about feelings. But if you talk about feelings, if you name a feeling, you're weak, okay? However, also, it can also be perpetuated by society as a whole.
So it's within the family, within
And also
society.
outside, yes.
That's a double whammy. Yeah. One of the things, as we're talking about Black joy, it's one thing to certainly go to a comedy club, as we've heard, or to hop on a bike and be around people who are like you, enjoying and fellowshipping, if you will, together. But there is this thinking of, how do you make it sustainable, right? Moments of joy are wonderful and important, but how do you make it lasting? Is that too tall an order to ever experience, or is there a way to achieve something that's more sustainable, even in the midst of some of these personal struggles that people may have?
Absolutely. So I usually, when I'm working with clients or patients, I usually describe joy as two types of joy. You can have joy when you have something great happen to you, which is situational but also transient. That's something happens to you, you get a promotion, that's joy, absolutely. There is reason for that to really give you joy. However, the difficult part is learning to cultivate that internal joy that's with you no matter what, whether it's a difficult situation, whether you're going through pain, you still have that river of joy flowing within you that you can tap into it. So that's where we talk about sustainable joy. It takes work, to be honest. It does take work. And once you get there, though, how do you maintain that and protect that joy? Because there are so many other competing obligations that are actually fighting to take that joy away. And I like to tell people, to give an example of Senator Cory when, I don't know if you saw the video, where he was very, very adamant, but also resistant, and said, I will not allow anyone to take away this joy today. And this was during the hearing for the now, Justice Jackson. And I remember watching that video over and over again and looking at his face and realizing that just because you have joy and you have worked hard to get there, it doesn't mean that it cannot be taken away from you.
And I think of that every morning when I wake up.
Yes.
And I'm walking out the door, I'm going to hit this day, focus on joy. And I get a phone call or I get
Right.
something that knocks me off course a little bit. And I can only imagine how someone dealing now with another layer of some mental health issues, how that can be especially difficult.
Absolutely.
So people like you are helping. But what else? What other resources are out there for people who are trying to get mentally healthy?
Mentally healthy. I usually tell people that start with whoever you feel comfortable with, because it's already a field that's already stigmatized, and we're in the days where talking about mental health is becoming normalized, which is wonderful, but it still does carry a certain sense of stigma with it. So start with whoever you feel comfortable with. However, also, if you do have a primary care doctor, you have already established primary care, that's a good starting point. Most of the primary care doctors do have screening tools that can certainly screen those conditions that chip away at our joy. And then outside of that, depending on, and again, joy can also be subjective. So what makes you joyous might not be what makes me joyous. So I guess trying to really understand your needs, if at all you can, but there are so many resources out there in the community. In the Boston area, they have the best team, which is out of Boston Medical Center, MGH as well. They do have several resources, as well as a whole list of providers that are more geared towards the specific needs of the BIPOC community. But most importantly, safety first, as you can all attest, the rise in suicidality and all of that. Just know that there is actually hope. There is also help out there. But absolutely, there are so many the hotlines that are there also can also be used. Emergency rooms as well, if at all possible. But certainly, your primary care.
Seek help.
Yeah, seek help overall seek help, but seek help wherever you feel safe.
And I will tell you, I love, as you pointed out, this younger generation, or nowadays it's more acceptable to speak out in public places. And on social media, I'll often see big stars, talking about some of the challenges that they're going, whether in the sports or Hollywood, wherever, they're talking about it. So it makes it easier, I think, to lower that stigma bar. And the more that people of color are speaking out, I can imagine how that also is helping for people to have that honest conversation.
Absolutely. And the more we talk about it, we normalize it. It becomes second nature. We no longer have to suffer silently. So making noise about it, continuing this movement that we have to talk about mental health is going to be absolutely important to maintain and also sustain what we have.
Thank you so much for all of this great advice and for all the good work you're doing. And we will continue making noise about joy for the fitting culmination of our night. We're going to hear more from Jeneé and Oompa.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to get my sister's mic stand. Here you go, baby.
Thank you, Jeneé.
Can I get an amen? Amen. I just want to thank Oompa for that performance. Say Black Joy.
Black joy.
One more time, like you mean it, like you happy.
Black joy.
All right. Oompa, you already know how I feel about you.
Likewise.
When I say Black girl magic, I never mean it in a way that makes us aliens, in a way that makes us less human. I mean it as to say we cast a spell in our very existence, in our realness, in our grit, in our grace. What does Black girl magic mean to you?
Well, I'm an Aquarius, so I don't mind being an alien. But I'm okay with that. But Black girl magic, I think, to me is just is living the life that Spirit gave you, being the spirit that you are, and making commitments to yourself to be exactly that under all conditions, and then watch the greatness that kind of emits from you in the work that you do in the world, by virtue of being honest with that or being true to that.
Unbothered is such a joyful album.
Yeah.
What inspired it? What were you feeling and thinking as you moved through that album?
I was feeling terrible. I just was like, I'm in a horrible place and I don't want to quit. So I needed a new way, a new commitment to living. Like I needed a new way to live. We were in the middle of a pandemic. The world was already what I thought it was, and now it was revealing its hand. So I've been walking around in my music like, the world is sick, oh my God. And finally everybody was like, the world is sick. And I was like, okay, well I guess I don't have to scream that anymore. What can I make when I'm not doing that? And also it was just like an opportunity for me to look at myself and my life and kind of just the patterns that I was repeating and just being like, I really, when I wake up, I want to find joy. I want to understand what that is. And what I found in the process of making the album is that joy is always. It's now and it's in the future, and we promise it to ourselves and we give it to ourselves, and so that's Unbothered.
What you just said is literally why I say Black joy.
Yes.
I was feeling at my lowest and most demoralized when I created A Beautiful Resistance.
There it is.
I had no joy, so I was looking for a space to cultivate it
Yes.
and nurture it and grow it. How do you cultivate joy when you're not on stage making this beautiful music for all of us?
Just gratitude. I'm all about love. Like I'm here to be loved. I'm here to love fiercely. So there's that. That's my commitment on earth is if you've encountered me, I want you to feel loved. And if I misstep in that, I want you to know that that's not my intention. I'm willing to fix it because that's what I'm here for. So to be loved and to give love, but to also have gratitude, like in anything. You know, I have the opportunity to breathe. I'm here in this world. I'm here in this room. You know, I could be having the worst things going on, but I have another opportunity. I have something to smile at and be grateful for, like this camera person right here. You know, grateful, just grateful.
Shout out to our camera people.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Why is music such an important medium for us, especially right now?
I think music is always important. And you know, as a person who makes music, I can't necessarily answer that anymore. I don't really know how to answer that anymore. Why is it important? But why it feels important to me is I think that I'm always exploring what it means to be in the world. I'm always making promises to myself, my future self. I'm always creating a legacy in my mind, at least. Like, you know, the things that I create and that live on earth and have a life, you know, they do something when you interact with them. And so I think it's important to continue to what is that word I'm looking, document your life, you know, and to explore with other people. You know, you listen to a song of mine, you might not like it, but we just went down a path together. We explored something together, and I think that is what this is about.
For those of you who don't know, Oompa is also a teacher.
Yeah.
Oompa literally helps cultivate our next generation of thought leaders and artists and creatives. Tell us why you do what you do.
They do it for me. Like I teach to stay young. Okay, they got the fountain of youth. They understand something about life that we lose, and they understand what it means to live because I'm here. Like and they have that, and I think because of capitalism or because of our own expectations, because of trauma that had more time to live in our bodies over time, I think we just lose sometimes how simple life really is, and so. I feel fortunate to work with young people because they're always a living reminder of that. But also, I just remember what music did for me. So if I can do anything in terms of cultivating a space or opportunities for them to find themselves through a medium like poetry or music, then I feel good about that. So.
Give it up for your teachers.
Straight up.
One of my favorite conversations with you that we've had before is about what it is to be Black in Boston. People, you and I travel a bit, and people outside of the state, outside of the area are always like, oh, there's Black people in Boston? Whoa. It's like, bro, it's a quarter of us.
And it's not even two. Like,
yeah, it's a quarter. We are all the way outside.
Right.
What does it mean to be Black in Boston?
I think the history is complicated, right? Like, it's not complicated. The history is ugly, and I think that exists. That history kind of permeates everything, every avenue we try to take, whether it's in business or art or just being a person who lives and is walking down the street. I think that history is alive and present. And at the same time, right, there's this, because of that, I think to live in Boston and to take up so much space, I think at least the way that I do is about a resistance too. It's a resistance to that history. It's a charge, as Porsha said, to recontrol narratives and rewrite them. And so for me, I think it's ugly in this way, but it's so beautiful, and I'm a Roxbury to the day I die, So.
I was going to ask you what your beautiful resistance was, but you just gave it to me.
That's it.
You are so anointed in all you do, and I'm so thankful to have you in Boston and to just, be in the presence of one of Roxbury's great daughters.
Thank you.
Oompa, oh, great, fabulous, fit check.
Thank you.
Oompa and I always are looking at each other's kicks. It's our thing.
Yeah.
I am incredibly humbled, honored, and ecstatic, and just overjoyed to introduce Oompa as she performs Go.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeneé. So I wanted to do this song Go because I think sometimes I have this tendency to speak directly to a topic as it relates to the thing that I'm performing for. But I think part of it is the symbolism. Part of what Black Joy is the symbolism. So I love love. I love dance. I love a little two-step. I'm an auntie through and through. So I just figured we'll end on some joy. So this song is called Go. So don't be afraid to two-step at home. Don't be afraid to two-step here. Clap your hands. Do whatever you feel like doing. We're going to have some fun, though. Is that okay? Yeah. All right. It's okay. Let's get to it. Go it is. All right. Yeah. Oh. Uh-huh. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, okay, yeah, top down, let's just take a scenic road. Okay, yeah, you like nature, let's jump in the cloud. No coming down, hey, we've got a long wide road and okay. Leaving is all I know, and don't speed through the night. Ride slow, eyes closed. No signs to slow for miles to go and 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 go. Hey, I gotta go. Everything you do will make the time slow. Whichever way you blow the wind and I go. Everything we do is with our eyes closed. So, hey, I'm digging on you, and how you be digging in my back like you're looking for a feeling, and we feel it in my grass. Every time I try to quit it, you come with it, I relapse. Need me another $1.50 up on the gas for it. She said it's yours, you don't even have to ask for it. Foreign girls here, don't even need no passports. We can take a flight if you ain't afraid of heights. We're going on tonight, you don't need no boarding pass, shorty. Don't know if I'm swimming now, don't know if I'm drowning. All I know is that I'm kicking, and ocean is all around me. Tell me that we love me, boy, I know it's something bigger. Them cameras is coming quick and we see in the bigger picture. I don't know what to do, know we want me calm, but it's so good I'm forgetting that as wrong as it worth it. I know it ain't worth it, but I gotta go.
Confession,
sing it then.
I'm restless,
okay.
I guess it's a blessing. I'm making it while you sleep.
Yeah.
I never mind slowing down.
Okay.
But the way that I'm living now isn't Porsha. Keep my options open.
Danny Christopher, y'all. Hey, and go, 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 and go. I gotta go. Everything you do will make the time slow. Whichever way you blow the wind and I go. Everything we do is with our eyes closed. So, hey, everything you do will make the time slow. Whichever way you blow the wind and I go. Everything we do is with our eyes closed. So, I gotta go. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.
Wow. What a great hour. By the way, you were talking about your kicks. We have to put your kicks on TV here. What's going on? Tell us about your shoes.
Shout out to Concept. Shout out to Dion, Boston's very own. These are a Boston collaboration out of Concepts with Nike for Air Max Day.
That is joy right
known
there.
as heavy,
those shoes.
and the joy is heavy.
Yeah, you've got the shoes. I've got the
you
socks.
Got the socks.
Yeah,
Look, you got the socks.
There
We're
we
doing
go.
it together.
Exactly. How do you put this whole hour into some final thoughts as you think about everything we've heard tonight?
You know, I really meant what I said when I was closing with Oompa. I'm overjoyed. My cup is filled. My heart is full. I think this is exactly what, I think a lot about what it means when we gather, the collective power, the collective joy, what it means when we share our story and share how we move together. You know, we all woke up today. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. We are possible. That's amazing. I'm filled with sheer gratitude. Just being here is a beautiful resistance, and I'm so happy to have shared space with you.
I'm so happy to have shared the space with you as well. Thanks so much.
Thank
Beautiful
you.
evening. And a big thank you to all our panelists and those of you who attended our Black Joy celebration in person here at the GBH studio at the Boston Public Library, and those of you who are watching online. We invite our in-person guests to stick around, meet each other, and feel a little joy with new and old friends. The Newsfeed Cafe will be serving wines, juices, and other snacks from their Black-owned business partners. Thank you to all of our partners, the Boston Globe, the NAACP Boston Chapter, the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce, and of course, GBH's World Channel. Good night, everybody. Good night. Keep the joy going.
Hi, everyone. I'm Paris Alston from GBH's Morning Edition. Important programs like The State of Race are made possible by GBH members, people like you who support GBH's commitment to respond to, represent, and include the diversity of our community in the work we create and how we create it. And you have a chance to help us in raising that visibility and furthering conversations around the issues facing communities of color. Tonight, if you're able to give $8 a month, that's just $96 a year, we'll send you Black Joy, Stories of Resistance, Resilience, and Restoration. This hardcover book is a collection of lyrical essays detailing the power of Black joy as a weapon of resistance and a tool for resilience. Tonight, we've got 3 ways for you to give. You can go to gbh.org/support events. You can text GBH to 800-204-3811 using the keyword GBH to donate. Or you can scan the QR code here to open the donation form on your smartphone. Out of all the news and entertainment sources out there, you turn to GBH. That's why we are turning to you to ask for your support. There will never be a better time to give. Donate to GBH now, and we'll send you a copy of Black Joy to show our appreciation. And if you're already a GBH member, thank you so much.